Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, they've finally done it. They've slayed the Red Dragon, beating the Boston Red Sox and eliminating from the playoffs, really for the first time since 2003. This has been 22 years in the waiting. Again, the Yankees kind of been slapped around by the Red Sox organization. Not only them just winning championships, but also bouncing the Yankees over the last quarter century. Now finally good to stick it to the Red Sox, and in doing so, moving on to the next round against Toronto in the divisional series and coming up with probably one of the greatest Yankee postseason pitching performances, again, probably all time. Cam Schlittler breaking records and doing so, again, having probably the best postseason debut start in Major League history that you could consider there, and all happening just at the right time. Kind of a throwback game, kind of reminds you of the old days of like Andy Pettitte, Mike Mussina, El Duque, just throwing some big games there in the October. Yankee Stadium had all the field for it, and also, kind of like the old days when the Yankees used to beat Boston. So all coming back there, all at the right time. So getting into it, and more importantly, again, the Yankees keep the season alive, advance to the divisional series in Toronto. That will start on Saturday night up in Toronto there, best of 5 series. But of course, you're a Yankee fan. You just want this game for so many reasons. Again, you've been dying to beat Boston for so long, and not only did it, but he's had, again, this Cam Schlittler throwing, again, as good as a pitching performance as you can there. And Booney, give him credit, making some good decisions here, sticking with Cam longer than I thought he would. Also did some of his defensive replacements, is touching the right buttons at the right time there. So for the talk of, Alex Cora always out-managing Boone, and in his case there with Boone seemed like he had the magic touch tonight. And just, again, all at the right time as the Yankees take Game 3 by a score of 4-0. Kind of a bizarre game where all the offense happened in one inning, but that was more enough for Cam Schlittler, who shut out the Red Sox through 8 there, and then Bednar coming on in the ninth. So we'll get into the whole thing, but before we do, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Get updates and feedback after each game. And of course, we have a long winter ahead of us, but hopefully we're not there till a long time from now. But you want to be a podcast subscriber, and there's also a YouTube version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees. Go there, subscribe, and the latest version actually kind of gave my predictions. I felt the Yankees would take Boston in 3. They did that. Now, I'll just pat myself on the shoulder. Can't really say I expected that, but there were a lot of indications that this was going to go 3, and I felt good the Yankees at home. So check out the YouTube channel as well. So the Yankees with Game 2 there, a bit of a nail biter, hung out for 4-3 and gave themselves another hope just to close it out. And I felt good about the Yankees if they could just get it to a Game 3. I just like the idea that, Cam Schlittler versus Connolly Early. Again, Connolly Early, who was pretty good in this game for the two of them. You got a 23-year-old versus a 24-year-old, both rookies making postseason debuts and came out there and work as composed as vets. But with all that being said, I just like Schlittler just because we've seen a lot more of him. Again, he's been pitching in the majors since July versus Early. He's only had 4 major league starts under his belt there, and he kind of thrown him right into the pit. So with that being said, Schlittler and the Yankees odds in this game a little bit more than Early. Now, Cora actually stuck with Early a little bit more than I thought we did, and maybe stuck with him a little bit too long. But eventually the Yankee lineup was able to get to him. But really the story of the game is going to be Cam Schlittler with this breakout performance. Again, this is his first time in a postseason game, and he gives you 8 innings, 12 strikeouts, doesn't walk a batter, just 5 hits, and only 1 batter reached second base the entire game. Only batter really only seemed to give him some problems was Yoshida, who had a couple of hits off him. Other than that, he just blew everybody away. So quite impressive there, even dialing up to 100 early on, and even his final inning there in the 8th. Which, again, I was surprised Boone still pushed him that far. But, hats off to Boone on that one. Still throwing 97, 98 that late in the game, where he's about, a little over 100 pitches. Again, as good as a performance you could get there. Did not walk 1 batter, only went to 3 ball on 1 batter the whole game there. So again, this is as impressive as you get, and you're going to look back at some Yankee performances, and we don't know where this 2025 season is going to go, but you're going to remember this as the Cam Schlittler game. And he might throw similar games like this in the future, but since it's the first time and he's a rookie there, this is going to be the Cam Schlittler game. And you go back to some memorable Yankee pitcher performances in recent years, and really, unfortunately, maybe there's nothing really stops at the top of my head with concerning Garrett Cole. I know Cole all over, he's been successful as a Yankee there, but I don't think he's really had a performance like this. This has been as good as it gets, and this really takes you back to the dynasty Yankees. This is like a Mike Mussina performance. 2001 Game 3 in Oakland. That was the Jeter flip play. And the Yankees win that 1-0 game where Mike Mussina gave you 7 brilliant innings. Then you look at maybe Game 5 to close out the Mets at Citi Field in the 2000 World Series. The pitches duel between Andy Pettitte and Al Leiter, where Pettitte just gives you a great performance and just comes out on top, even though Leiter pitched his heart out in that game. Pettitte got the better of him. Even the World Series in 98, Game 2, El Duque, with even the Yankees up 1-0 in that series, just gives you a brilliant performance where San Diego Padres had no chance there. Just going 7 innings plus, like old school type of stuff. Again, we haven't seen a performance like this in quite some time. Very nostalgic to that. It's just the way the game has changed now where, even if you have a great pitcher like Garrett Cole, sometimes it just barely goes 6 innings, a little to the 7th, then it's all bullpen. This time, Boone didn't want to even touch that bullpen, and I'll get into that a little later, which kind of worries me a little bit, but stuck with Schlittler the whole way. And again, he didn't look like he was on the duress the whole way. He's just pretty smooth as silk. And what you kind of like about him, he's not one of these guys that pumped his fist only like when I think he came off the mound there in the 8th because maybe he knew that he was finished for the night. Other than that, no going crazy, just kind of putting his head down and walking to the back of the dugout. And then once it was his turn to come back up again, boom, come up that and getting some more Ks and 12 strikeouts there. And it wasn't like really the Red Sox was swinging at bad pitches. I mean, he was pretty much in the zone. He was just blown by them. He got him chased a few times, a little on the hands, a little outside, a little higher than they would. But again, he was pretty much in the box the whole time there, and they couldn't touch his stuff. 98, 99, 100 there early on there. He was just blowing these guys away. So again, pretty as impressive as it gets. And it's kind of funny how this has all worked out. Pretty much, you go back to really Clark Schmidt having, needing the Tommy John surgery, and the fact that Stroman was really ineffective. I mean, it's pretty much opened to the door of a guy who none of us really knew about. This guy in spring, and just goes ahead to show some of these injuries sometimes. Sometimes they're for the better, and then sometimes someone you have there in AA, AAA, just waiting for that opportunity to come, and it just works out right. And they're going to talk about this one for a while, just the way it all came about. It's not like this guy was a number 1 draft pick, and we kind of been tracking Judge for all those times, and tracking Dominguez for all those years, Volpe's, he's going to be next year. Again, this guy really pretty much coming out of nowhere and putting up a performance like this. But for the game itself, early on there was not what I expected. I mean, it was a bit of a pitches duel between, and Connolly early, again, equally impressive. He doesn't really dial it up there as much, but kind of a tall, lanky lefty. I didn't really see much of him before, so this is kind of my first time actually seeing him in the game there. And, mid-90s fastball, and then he has that sweeper there, and he pretty much had the Yankees off balance early on. And but once it seemed like they got to this, the second time through the lineup there, seemed like they were dialing it on a little bit more there. And this was a game where the Yankees really tattooed early. I mean, they had a lot of luck in this game. Still started with the Bellinger little bloop there to center right field, where Abreu and Rafaela couldn't come up with the ball and kind of bounces in. Just got a lucky bounce, and he was hustling right out of the gate, getting himself to second base. From there on, the Yankees were able to get a big walk there for Ice Stanton there. So Stanton early in the game smoked the ball there. This time, a huge walk there on a very close play. Puts on first and second. Then you got Jazz up next there, who lines a shot to third base, but at that point, it was hard for Stanton to really judge the ball there. So, and plus, again, we know he's not the fastest runner in the world. So at that time, left the bases loaded situation with that. And then after that, come in with Ahmad Rosario, who, again, another good Boone decision, putting the the right-handed hitting Rosario, he's known for hitting lefties, and of course he was in there for the first game against Crochet, rips a ball through the shortstop hole there, and of course puts the Yankees on the board, only able to score 1 run in that scenario. Then shortly after that, Volpe comes up with a little bit of a seeing eye single, and the Yankees had a little bit of luck in this game. Now Boston defense wasn't stellar, wasn't sharp, but again the Yankees just had some well-placed hits. Volpe, same thing, just a little number there past second base, just barely gets through, brings in another run, and then of course I guess made the KO at this point there was Austin Wells with a big at bat. He hits an little chopper to first base, and the former Gold Glover there bobbles the ball. 2 more runs come in to score. That increases the Yankees' lead to 4-0 at that point, which would be the final score there. So again, the very sure-handed Red Sox, who again part of their strength for going into this series was going to be really their hitting, their contact hitting, their grinding, and they're not, as I said during the telecast we watched, they don't have David Ortiz, they don't have Manny Ramirez. It's not those type of Red Sox from remember the early 2000s. This is a grinding team that just plays really good defense. They make contact. They're very good on the bases. They run the bases well. They make a lot of steals. But the defense in games both 2 and 3 failed them in this case, and they failed them big time in that 4th inning there, where the Yankees were able to push 4 runs across. And this is the way with Cam Schlittler was dealing there. Obviously, this looked like that. It was like a 10-0 score. Now, obviously, if you're watching as a Yankee fan, you're paranoid, and you think as soon as someone gets on, they're going to hit a 2-run home run and cut the lead to 4-2. So, yeah, you do have that anxiety. But again, Schlittler just kept dealing after that point, and Yankees, didn't really tack on after that. They did have another bases loaded opportunity. In terms of the offense, the rest of the way, that was it for the Yankees, and it was just about, how long they're going to go with Schlittler before they were going to go to the bullpen. Now, I like what Boone did initially for the 7th inning. Obviously, after the 6th, Schlittler only had 84 pitches, and you know what? It could have been very easy for Boone to say, all right, you know what, kid, it's your first postseason game. We don't want to push you too much, and maybe I'm going to roll the dice here. And overall, I know the bullpen wasn't taxed too much in the first two games. Even though a lot of faces came and went out there, it could have been very easily. Boone could have very easily went to one of those bullpen arms, but he put Schlittler out there for the 7th inning. Now that concerns me just a little bit, not as much when he sent him out in the 8th inning, because again he was under 100 pitches. He probably remembers the flack he got from Game 1, and God forbid he took Schlittler out and in the 6th inning, after the 6th inning, and then in the 7th inning, someone like Weaver would have gave up like 3 runs there, and then Boone would never have heard of that. Maybe he would have had a job after that. So probably a little of that was probably from the learning from Game 1 there. So all right, fine, you give Schlittler the 7th inning. After that, this guy's almost at 100, and you bring him out for the 8th. Now, again, they had the whole thing on, if you watch the telecast on ESPN, they said, all right, he's throwing strikes, so put him out there again. They read Boone's lips from that. But that just kind of tells me a little bit. The fact that, again, this bullpen hasn't been used much. They had Monday off. You have an off day Friday. The bullpen was probably, you could have put something out there. The fact that he wants to stick with Schlittler tells me he does not trust this bullpen. So as good as Schlittler was and as good as the performance was, that just kind of concerns me a little bit. He doesn't think this bullpen's very good, and he'd rather have a little bit of maybe a slightly tied out Schlittler near 100 pitches versus bringing in Weaver or bringing in Devin Williams on back-to-back days. So that concerns me a little bit, just in terms of what his faith is in this Yankee bullpen, no matter what he says after the game there. So luckily it only took him 7 pitches and they're able to get through it overall with 12 punch-outs in the game. Again, you want to nitpick on Boone because, look, he won the game, he won the series there. But then in the 9th inning, I didn't love the idea of going to Bednar. He already pitched the first 2 games. He's going to be a closer. He's probably going to go multiple inning when they go to this next round versus Toronto. I probably would like someone else there in that 9th inning. Definitely not Devin Williams, because my philosophy is never put him in a big game. Maybe Cruz, maybe Weaver, maybe one of those 2 there. I like that because Bednar's going to be used a lot. So now you're pitching him 3 games in a row. Now, if you notice Bednar, what he did there in the 9th inning, you didn't really see any fastballs at all. He went almost all curveballs. So, all right, maybe then he saved his arm a little bit, for the Toronto series. Okay, he just threw curveballs. But I did not like the idea, with the 4-0 lead, you kind of have the win there. I'd rather go to Cruz in that situation. I know you have Cruz pitched the night before, but again, he pretty much more rested, and I didn't want to put Bednar out there 3 games in a row. Yeah, you're off Friday, but then you have to might use him right again Saturday night. So, if I want to critique Boone a little bit, that would be one right there. Boone also, as I said, made a right call there at third base. He kind of stuck with Rosario for most of the game, and they kind of brought up the telecast because what Boone mentioned in Game 1, one of his regrets wasn't taking out Fried early, but the fact that he made the swap for Rosario at second base for Jazz, because what happened in the 9th inning when the Yankees had bases loaded, instead of Rosario up there in that bases loaded situation, who had 2 career home runs off of Chapman, Rosario was already out of the game. Jazz was there, and Jazz has had a bit of a pop-up, so you saw him sticking with Rosario a little bit long until he maybe felt comfortable that we had this win. Then he went for the upgrade for the little bit of better defense of McMahon, and McMahon right away, that pop-up going towards a very Jeter-esque play, making the catch into that bench there. Kind of reminded of another famous play against the Red Sox when, again, Jeter did the jump catch where he went into the first row there and smashed his head against the seats there. Now, again, that was in the actual fan section, not in the opposing team's dugout. So a little difference there, but both against the Red Sox, ironically. And then funny is the end of the game, McMahon with the pop-up reminded me of Charlie Hayes there in 1996, almost in that same spot, right off the third base bag, a little bit in foul territory, making the final catch to secure the win there for Bednar, who, again, was throwing nothing but curveballs. But again, Boone just going to McMahon just at the right time, and it pays off right away there, making that amazing catch. And again, this is a really good, this solid win. This reminds you of the old days, the late 90s, early 2000 kind of wins there in Yankee Stadium. Just a little cold weather, it's against the Red Sox, and then strong pitching performance, 8 innings there. Just, so that's something you would see from Andy Pettitte or El Duque, somebody like that. Yankees haven't had that. They've had some good teams there, but not you haven't seen a performance like that. Even from Garrett Cole, again, hasn't had a performance like that. So in terms of the Yankees, also just slaying this drag. I mean, before Game 2, the Red Sox have beaten the Yankees in the last 9 of 10 head-to-head postseason games. So it's just, you go back to the one-game showdown in 2021. You go to 2018, and the Red Sox took the Yankees in like 5 games. Then, of course, we know the misery of the 2004 World Series. Again, the Yankees, losing the final 4 games of that. So the Yankees really owed one for Boston. So it's not any good just to move on, but just to beat this team and kind of slay that dragon. And Alex Cora there's kind of smirky when they kind of interviewed him after the 4th inning there. Say, we just stopped playing defense. Like, not really giving the Yankee hitters any credit to sort of they didn't catch the ball. But again, a lot of it is balls falling in the right place. And Rosario's shot there through the shortstop ball was hit like a bullet. It's not like his defense was garbage, but I could say more of that about Game 2 versus Game 1 there. But again, the Yankees House had a little bit of luck, but yeah, Boston, known for their defense, did not come up in games 2 and 3 there, so that's why they go home. Overall, we look at the Yankees as the better team, but again, you always see Boston has been a thorn in their side for most of the season. All the critique against the Yankees that they can't beat a team like Boston. They get beat up on the weaker teams, and not that Boston's like a great team or a terrible team, but they're a team that was 5 games behind the Yankees. But so you figure, but still, that in mind, you figure this would be a troublesome matchup against the Yankees. But the Yankees are going to rise on the occasion again, giving Boston a little taste of their own medicine. Not really relying on the long ball. No home run game 3 there. I know they got the home run in game 2 by Ben Rice, but again, this was all just a little bit choppers and bloopers and maybe a couple of hard hit balls at the right time. And again, Boston not playing great defense. So again, the Yankees not to sit back and relying on the long ball. And kind of get back to Giancarlo Stanton. Again, this will probably be forgotten about. His first at-bat hits a bullet, which everyone thought in the world, and including him, was going to be a home run into the opposing team's bullpen. Hits the middle of the wall there. He has to basically collect himself to get himself to second, which I was praying to pull a hamstring doing that. Looks like he's okay. But that could have been an embarrassing moment. Now, it's certainly going to be forgotten about. But if something happened where the Yankees lost that game, I think that would have been looked to as symbolic of what this Yankee team is. This kind of lumbering there, just relying on the long ball and kind of, all that stuff, the showboating, the home runs and the flipping the bat there. So what this win does for really Stan, it gets him off the hook for that one. And as we'll probably even forget about that there. But again, if this is a situation where the Yankees lost and, let's say, I don't know, they say they lose like 3-1 or 3-2, something like that. They'll look back at that situation, saying, that would have been symbolic of this Yankee team and kind of this group of, of recent years. Let's say that this current Yankee group would have been symbolic of that guy just hitting the wall there, doing the bat flip and all that stuff and looking into the dugout. And you're lucky you got to second base there, but that's all going to be erased there. So, Cam Schlittler really got Stanton off the hook on that one. And it's getting back to Cam Schlittler. Is he going to put a performance as good as that? It's hard to say. And again, the last time I think Schlittler faced Toronto at Yankee Stadium, they lit him up a little bit. So, we'll see. I mean, he should at least get a start in the series, unless the Yankees wipe out in the first 3 games, which I don't think would happen. But he will get another shot there. So, last time Toronto got to him, so maybe this time maybe he could turn on Toronto. It's going to be hard to, top that performance. Again, that's a record-breaking performance, if you saw in the ESPN game again. No pitchers made a debut like that. 8 innings, 12 strikeouts, no walks. So there we go, wild card round, and this is the first time the Yankees did this 3-game series, and they came out on top. The Red Sox hadn't lost back-to-back elimination games, I guess, since 1986. So the Yankees putting in a little bit of history there. They kind of put the Red Sox in their place, kind of get those fans off their back, have to hear about them and how many championships they had in this century, blah 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 blah. And again, if you look at this, having someone like Schlittler there who, again, knock on wood, only 24 years old. He's gonna under control for a while, and this is a guy you have. And they were saying over the broadcast, just look for the future now. You're gonna have him. You got Max Fried. Cole at some point comes back from the Tommy John surgery. Rodon, you still have him under contract for a few years, and everything after that is just pretty much gravy. Now, we all say that, so I don't want to get too far ahead until the season's over. People are going to get hurt, though. But again, pitching-wise, you like yourself for this Yankee future. And again, the only thing you have to kind of worry about is we saw maybe Cody Bellinger's last at bat. See him limped a little bit. I don't think it was anything major. I mean, no trainers or anything went to him in the dugout. Obviously, he busted it hard, getting himself in the second base when he had that bloop. And then, again, on the Omar Rosario hit the left field. Give props there to Luis Rojas, the former Mets manager, now Yankee third base coach. I wouldn't have sent him there because Bellinger was barely at third base yet, and that ball was ready in the left field in Duran's hand, and he made a pretty good throw, and this Bellinger busted in there. So maybe from all the running first, from going first to second on the bloop, and then going from second to home on the Rosario hit there, maybe pulled something or something like that. I don't know. So the Yankees take the last game, not as nerve-wracking as maybe games 1 and 2, especially game 2 was extremely nerve-wracking. This is a little bit more chill. And again, that's what happens when you have a good pitching performance. The Yankees move on. So get Friday off, and then we'll try again in Toronto. And again, the Yankees are on a bit of the revenge tour. So, Boston kind of gave the Yankees some troubles during the regular season. Now they took care of business against him. They get a chance against Toronto, who really slapped the Yankees around for the majority of the regular season, and see if they can now right the ship with that one. So we'll catch you next time.